Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to you yet another awesome yet crazy theory, and with 6 seasons already under its belt and a 7th one on its way for 2021, I do have to question how much gas is left in the tank of the Flash. And the reason why I say that is with Arrow already concluding earlier in the year, and Supergirl already being announced that it's going to close its doors after its 6th season, I do question where does The Flash stand as a show in the Arrowverse. I mean, for the most part, The Flash has been a fantastic show, few ups and downs along the way, but nothing is ever perfect. But for the most part, The Flash has been probably my favourite show of the entire Arrowverse, second of course with Supergirl and third with Arrow. Now of course I fully expect the first half of season 7 to concentrate on wrapping up the loose ends that was left hanging at the end of season 6, but after that, where does the show go from there? So this theory I'm going to be coming up with is for a character who we haven't seen for quite a while. He played a very big role in Season 1, and he had a little cameo in Season 2, when Barry travelled back in time and got this guy to record a video message for Iris, expressing how much he loved her and how much he meant to her. And the guy I am talking about is, of course, Eddie Thawne. Now, aside from the big part that Eddie Thawne had in Season 1 and the little cameo that he had in Season 2, Eddie Thawne has mostly either been mentioned or we've seen a few photographs around during the show's run, but for the most part he's been largely absent. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Season 7 of The Flash has to be the last one, but I do feel that at some point the show will eventually start to wind down, and it could probably end at either Season 8 or maybe Season 9. But if they are thinking about winding it down, then I do think that Eddie Thawne should be brought back, because in my opinion I feel that there is still a lot of unfinished business with Eddie Thawne, and I feel there is a lot of ground that has still yet to be covered with the character. And I thought he was a really good character. I really enjoyed him in the show, and I remember watching Season 1 of The Flash. I actually thought he was the Reverse Flash originally, and I thought he was going to be the show's answer to Eddie Brock from Spider-Man. That's what I thought, judging by the way he was portrayed throughout the first season, but that didn't turn out to be the case. But if they do decide to bring Eddie Thawne back at some point in the show, then I would love to see Eddie Thawne be brought back as the main villain for Season 7. And the reason why I say that is there is a lot of unfinished business with him and Iris, because as we all know, Iris and Eddie Thawne were a couple in Season 1, so I feel that there is a lot of ground still yet to be covered with those two. And also another thing that comes into play is Eddie Thawne killed himself, and as a result of him taking his own life, it's resulted in Ian Bard Thawne being wiped out from existence, paving the way for Barry and Iris to not only get together as a couple, but we also saw them get engaged, which obviously led to the two of them getting married. Now, for the most part, Barry and Iris have been a very strong couple and have put on a very united front. Now, this is where my theory comes into play. I would have a shot of Central City experiencing a thunder and lightning storm similar to the one that they had back in Season 1 when the particle accelerator went off, and I would have a shot of blue lightning just speeding around Central City in a manner very similar to how Barry runs when he's the Flash, but the difference is this blue lightning bolt is very disoriented and all over the place, and I would have the Blue Lightning be revealed to be Eddie Thawne. Now, I would have Eddie Thawne be brought back as a result of Oliver Queen's sacrifice of rebooting the multiverse and creating Earth Prime. And this Eddie Thawne would have all of the memories that he had from the previous timeline right up to when he sacrificed himself as a result of Cobalt Thawne restoring his memories. And this Eddie Thawne wouldn't be the same Eddie Thawne that we remember when we last saw him. This Eddie Thawne has super speed, and he's very dark and very bitter and very pissed off about the fact that he sacrificed himself and he got nothing out of the deal. And he could look at it like, well, I sacrificed myself to make sure that everybody was safe and Cobalt Thawne is wiped out from existence. What did I get out of it? Nothing. But yet, when Oliver sacrificed himself, he gave everybody a new world, and Barry Allen, after I took my own life, he just walks in and takes my girl and marries her. So this would be more of a revenge story from beyond the grave. So I would have Eddie Thawne as the main villain, as Cobalt Blue, and he is essentially looking for revenge. And while Eddie is trying to adjust to the new Earth and is making plans of revenge, I would have Barry eventually get Iris out of the Mirrorverse and defeat the Mirror Master in the first half of Season 7. And even though Barry and Iris are back together, you can clearly see that tensions are at an all-time high, and I would have Iris be very upset and angry at the fact that Barry had no idea that the other Iris wasn't the real one, and Barry could plead his case by saying, Iris, I'm really sorry, I genuinely thought it was you, and I had no reason to think otherwise. And Iris could say, well, not only did you leave me trapped in the mirror for months on end with a psychopath, but you slept with this other Iris and you were sharing sensitive information with her. How could you not know it was me? I mean, my own brother, Wally, sensed that something was off with that one, but you didn't. And Barry could say, I did eventually. You have to give me a break, you know. What else was I supposed to think? But I got you out eventually. We're back together now. And I would have Iris say, look, Barry, as much as I love you, and I always will, I can't do this anymore. And at least when I was with Eddie Thawne, he kept me safe and he always protected me. I don't feel safe with you anymore, whether you're the Flash or as Barry Allen, my husband. And Barry could very tearfully say, what are you trying to say? And Iris could say, I want to divorce Barry. I can't do this anymore. So I wouldn't necessarily have Barry and Iris divorced, but obviously that idea is presented, and along the way I would have Iris walking around Central City very upset and very tearful, and she runs into, you guessed it, Eddie Thawne, and Iris obviously unaware that this is not the same Eddie Thawne that she remembered from the previous timeline. This is obviously Cobalt Blue, and I would have Eddie Thawne pretend that he's lost his memory, so he could say something like, I don't know how I ended up here, but all I know is I had to come and find you. And Iris said, how is this possible? I watched you die. How are you here now? And Eddie could say, well, I don't remember much. All I remember, it was dark and cold, and the next thing I knew, I'm here, alive, in Central City, but I don't remember much, but all I know is something said to me that I had to come looking for you. And over the course of Season 7, I would have Barry contemplating his own thoughts about what happens next, and he sees Iris at the coffee bar on her own, and as he's about to go up to her, he sees Eddie Thawne, and obviously Barry is very shocked at the fact that Eddie Thawne is alive and well, and he looks at it like, well, I guess my marriage is really over, Eddie Thawne's alive and well, and she's back with the person she's meant to be with all along. And as Barry is just starting to walk away, he looks back and he sees Eddie look straight at him, and his eyes begin to flash blue, and that of course sets up an alarm in Barry's head, and that leads to a confrontation with Eddie Thawne. Now, how I would set up this confrontation between these two is I would have Eddie Thawne back at police headquarters in his old detective job, and he calls the Flash to go over a case with him, and that could lead to the big confrontation between the Flash and Eddie Thawne, who will eventually reveal himself to be Cobalt Blue. And how I would set up this confrontation with Barry and Eddie is I would have Eddie Thawne invite the Flash to his office to work on a case involving Godspeed, and the Flash could say to Eddie, with everything that's happened, what with Godspeed running around and all of the events of Crisis that occurred, it's really good to have you back, Eddie, it's really good to see you. And Eddie could say, likewise, Barry, and Flash could be like, you remember who I am? And Eddie could say, well, of course I do, I remember everything. And Barry could ask Eddie, so why are you telling Iris that you've got amnesia and you don't remember anything? I said, well, when I first came back, says Eddie, I didn't remember anything. All I remember was I woke up in Central City and I've got super speed. How does that happen? And it wasn't until I met an old friend of yours and mine, Cobalt Blue, and he kind of helped me fill in the gaps, if you will. It's funny, Barry, because I sacrificed myself to save the woman I love and all of my friends, and honestly, what did I really get out of it? Nothing. Eobard told me that no matter what timeline, nobody remembers Eddie Thawne. I'm irrelevant. But yet you, I'm gone, and you've got a great new job here at police headquarters, and you've got my girl, you've got the woman I love. I mean, you must be on cloud 9 right now. And Barry could say, it wasn't like that, Eddie. And Eddie goes, well, how exactly was it like, Barry? I mean, let's look at it like this. I sacrifice myself, I get nothing. Your friend, Oliver, from Starling City, what did he become? What, some sort of ghost? Actually, it was a spectre, says Barry, and Eddie goes, it doesn't matter. The point is, he becomes a ghost with all this unlimited power, and he jumpstarts the entire universe from scratch, and he's hailed as a hero. But yet me, Eddie Thawne, I get nothing. I get absolutely nothing. And Barry could ask him, so what do you want, Eddie? What do you want to happen? And Eddie could turn around and say, you know what? I want to take everything away from you, just like you took everything away from me. And Barry says, listen, Eddie, I've always been your friend. I said, really? You've been my friend? So you couldn't even protect Iris. I mean, Iris was trapped in a mirror world for months, and you didn't even know that the Iris that was living with you was a fake, was an imposter. I mean, if that was me, I would have known in a second that it wasn't my Iris. But you're so blind and so stupid with your own arrogance that you couldn't even see that the real danger was in your own living room. And Barry could say, look, Eddie, I know you're angry, I know you're upset, but if we can sit down and talk about this, Iris loves us both, it doesn't have to be like this. And Eddie goes, yes it does, and you know what, I'm going to make you pay for what she did. And that could be the moment we see Eddie Thawne reveal himself to be Cobalt Blue. And I would have Eddie also explain that after the events of Crisis and Oliver rebooting the universe, which resulted in me coming back from the dead, I was able to acquire a blue flame which was used to heal people, and I absorbed all of its energy due to the negative side of the Speed Force, and that is the reason why I am able to run at such super speed. So I would have that also be the reason why Eddie Thawne is able to get powers and how he became Cobalt Blue. And there you have it, guys. That's pretty much my theory on how I would bring Eddie Thawne back as Cobalt Blue. Now, obviously things do have a way of playing out very differently, but as I said, I would have Eddie Thawne back as Cobalt Blue as the main villain for Season 7 of The Flash, and he's basically out for revenge and blames Barry for taking everything away from him. And also, like I said, there is a lot of unfinished business between Barry Allen, Eddie Thawne and Iris West, because he got killed off by Season 1, so he never really stayed around after that, so he was only there for like one season. So if the show does plan on winding down, then I would definitely bring Eddie Thawne back, because it just makes perfect sense. So I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your thoughts on Eddie Thawne coming back as Cobalt Blue? Would you have him back as the main villain for Season 7? And if so, how would you bring him back? Would you bring him back this way, or would you bring him back in a different way? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care everybody, and stay safe.